today we're here. We're going to see a little bit of what's going on in the region. We'll have a couple of presentations. Let me see. It's not working. So today we will have a market outlook, then we'll have a presentation by Colfuturo, Joana Torres. Colfuturo is an NGO, a Colombian NGO that it's funded by the government and private companies that provides funds for Colombians going to study abroad. Talento Total, Jim McCreary, who is helping Latin American Afro descendants and indigenous to get into business school and to law school. And finally, we'll have Carlos Levy from FIDER. It's a branch of the Mexican Central Bank who that provides loans for Mexican students. So we thought this information was useful for you. Thank you very much for joining. And we'll start right away. So what's going on in Latin America, as in the rest of the world? COVID has been the main topic and the main concern from all of us. It's right now under control, but low vaccination rates makes us very vulnerable to new strains. Vaccination rates are around 30% in most of our countries like Peru, Colombia, Brazil, but I mean, it's there, we're getting there. So I think the region has been especially struck by COVID because it experienced some of the highest per capita death rates in the world, especially in Peru and Mexico. Life is returning to normal, and we experienced some of the longest lockdowns in the world. So after, as a consequence of COVID, we had a slowdown in 2020, but the economy is recovering at a slow pace and might recover pre-pandemic levels in 2022 and 2023. Brazil might get there late this year, and Mexico will be the last one to recover in 2023. Most countries have experienced massive depreciations of their currency and high unemployment. I must underscore that employment is recovering slowly, but the Latin American economy is based like 50% of the employment, it's not formal. So what has been recovering employment is in that side of not formal employment. Formal employment will recover around 2022 or 2023. And government finances have suffered because of the decline in revenue due to the economic slowdown and high in expenditure for subsidies to support that population that was especially vulnerable during the COVID crisis. So political considerations, populism and polarization has become the norm in the region. And I mean, populism for left and right. Right, the extreme case is Bolsonaro in Brazil. And left, I would say, the new president, the new elected president in Peru, who has threatened to close the Congress and to pass some laws against companies, private enterprises. In the region, social unrest and protests are widespread. We had like a massive protest with riots in Colombia between May and June. But I mean, social protests, and I mean, frankly, I mean, we have a lot of poverty and inequality. Like the Latin American region is one of the most unequal regions in the world, and that has increased despite of the efforts, some governments' efforts to distribute large subsidies among the very poor population. So in the world economy, yes, the economy is gaining momentum. It's, I mean, that recovery was basically due to an increased policy of stimuli for those vulnerable with the pandemic, and also by an increased control of the pandemic due to vaccination. But one of the main concerns right now is inflation. That growth might also slow down because governments will need to cut back on the stimuli packages that they had given. So the acceleration of the vaccination has paved the way for a reduction of infections and economic recovery and reopening, but that's mainly in developed countries. Okay, what's all this that I just told you, the impact on prospective candidates is that you know that Latin American candidates see the MBA as a way to have an international career. So it's a big step, but the cost has increased significantly in the last years, both tuition hikes and the currency devaluation. As I mentioned, Colombia, Peru, and Brazil were have been struck very much, and that has made the decision extremely costly. The MBA is an investment. It's a life experience. It's a learning experience, tons of opportunity, but it's also very costly. So it's something to keep in mind. There's some concerns that the candidates express that you might be aware. GMAT and GRE score for Latin Americans are usually lower than in other parts of the world, but we bring to the table amazing work experience and also the joy of Latin Americans. So some students that work in small family business or local companies are very concerned that not having a multinational working in a multinational company will hamper their chances of admissions. So I personally believe that working for a small company gives you a lot of opportunities, learning opportunities, because you're more exposed to the day-to-day and more exposed to clients and everything. So it might be helpful to reassure them about that. I would say that Latin American students really need to work on how to portray themselves as a culture. We tend to be very humble, and it's not well seen to stand out of the crowd. And so we find it challenging to emphasize our individual achievements. It's difficult. It's also, we achieved, but not what did I do exactly for that project to come through. There is not much awareness regarding the protocol and how to interact with admissions. And there's simple things. I love the example of thank you notes. It's very common in the corporate world and in America and some European countries to write a thank you note after meeting someone. Well, we don't do that, and it's not natural for us. So the cultural subtleties are important. And because of the congestion and the traffic jams and everything, we don't have that much free time. So you will see that most of the candidates will do sports, but not volunteer experience is not that common. Sorry. So the Latin American education system is very much similar to that of those countries. We have, in most of the Latin American countries, 11 years of pre-undergraduate education, the exception being Mexico that has 12 years. And then when people start undergraduate education, we have what's called an undergrad, a bachelor's degree would be equivalent of pregrado or licenciatura. Just for your FYI, medicine and law are considered undergraduate degrees. You don't have to have an undergraduate degree to move on to get medical or law degree. In terms of postgraduate education, we have the traditional master's degree that is equivalent to an MA or an MS. It's 2 years, and then we move on to the doctoral degree. It's very difficult to start a doctoral degree without a master's degree in Latin America, but it could happen. And we have something that's called especialización, that in Colombia is the 1 year and it's a degree, but in Peru and Mexico, it's around 6 months to a year and it's not a degree. That would be considered like a diplomado here in Colombia. So options for studying abroad, we have family funding or company sponsorships, the Organization of American States, and specifically in Colombia, Colfuturo, ICETEX, Mexico, FIDER and FONET, and Peru, Pmbac. Regarding the participants profile for this edition of Premium MBA Contact, we had 221 registered participants. We reviewed 195 of those 195 CVs. We approved 110. So roughly 50% of the participants who registered had their CVs approved. Out of those approved, we have an average work experience of a little bit more than 5 years, and 27% had a master or a 1-year graduate diploma. The GMAT range been between 580 and 770. And I have to say that not that many people presented their GMAT scores. Either they didn't have it or they're still working hard to improve that. We expect 140 one-on-one appointments. So that means that we need to be very punctual on Saturday. So the candidates' countries of origin, as you can see, we have the majority Colombians, we have 1/4 approximately of Peruvians, 40% from Mexico, and 18% from other countries. That this includes all countries in Americas. And we made that decision because we saw that most of students who identify as being in the US had Latin American last names or names, and we thought they could be Latin Americans working in the US, or Hispanics that would also be of interest of you because they add to the diversity. Regarding prospective undergraduate majors, we have the common distribution, engineering, economics, management, and others. To my surprise, so a lot of engineers. I don't have a reason. I was thinking about a reason of why would we have more engineers, because that's not the normal, and perhaps how we target the marketing activities. And finally, you can see what's the desired function of the candidates who you will be seeing. Most of them will want general management, and they were able to choose as many functions they wanted. So general management is high, no surprise consulting in corporate strategy, technology, finance. I just saw that we divided up, but it's also huge. So that's for you to make your considerations. So thank you very much for being here. I know we're running a little bit late, so I'll leave the floor here. I can answer any questions about this after the presentations. I want to leave the floor to Joanna. Joanna, thank you for being with us.
I'm here. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Maria Cecilia, for inviting us always. And it's a pleasure to see familiar faces in here. So I will appreciate the time you have taken to learn about Colfuturo, those of you who already doesn't know about us. So my presentation is in Spanish, but I will do my best to translate it. So very quickly, Colfuturo is a non-for-profit organization that was established in Colombia 30 years ago. Our first group of beneficiaries was financed in 1992. And I also would like to add that Maria Cecilia is one of our beneficiaries. So she has a long experience with us. We have been working very close and together. And the main objective of Colfuturo is to support the best Colombian students to do masters and PhD abroad. And in order to do that, we have a financial scheme that is called loan scholarship, because the students can use our funds to finance, as I mentioned, master and PhD. And what we provide then is a loan of 50,000 American dollars that they can use in a period from 9 to 24 months. And this money can be used however the student needs. So if they want to use part of the funding for tuition fees, they can do that. If they want to use another part for living expenses, they could do that. When they go to the United States, we know that 50,000 is not enough. But what we try to do is complement, help them with all the funding that they will need to get. So saying this, I have to mention as well that when they are studying, they don't need to pay back to Colfuturo anything, because we want them to be focused on what they are doing, that is studying. So when they finish the program, they will have up to 3 years to remain abroad working. And after the first year of their graduation is when they will have to pay back to Colfuturo part of the loan. So we are going to see now the percentage of the money that can be converted into scholarship, because as I mentioned, the name of the program is loan scholarship. So one part of the money they have to pay with money, the part of the loan, and the part that you convert into scholarship is something that they will be paying to Colfuturo with time, because we ask them to return to Colombia and live in Colombia for a period of 3 years. So to summarize, they can work 3 years abroad, and after those 3 years, they have to come back to Colombia in order to receive the part of the loan that is going to be converted into scholarship. So unfortunately, in this case, I have to tell you that the students who do a program in the field of business, which includes finance, marketing, management, MBAs, of course, and people who do programs in law, they will get a 20% discount of the loan. And the other areas will get 40% discount. So in your case, for example, people who's going to study data management, something that is more close to engineering, they will be able to get the 40%. But if they are going to get an MBA, definitely they are going to have a 20% discount. If they are going to do finance, they are going to get a 20% discount. So that's the minimum scholarship that they will get. But in order to get this scholarship, they have to get the degree, return to Colombia, and live in Colombia for 3 years. Colfuturo wants to promote that the beneficiaries don't remain in Bogota. So we are trying to encourage them to go to different cities, Barranquilla, Medellin, Cali. We also want to encourage them to work in public sector, education, and research. So in order to do that, what we are going to offer the students is an extra scholarship. they will be able to add 2 bonuses of 20% each if they work as a full-time base in public sector, education, or research. And another 20% if they work in a city different than Bogota. So in that way, they will be adding to the main discount these 2 bonuses. Not all of them will get this, because if they return to Colombia, they remain in Bogota and they work in a private institution, they will get only 20 or 40%. But if they come back, go and live in Medellin and work with, I don't know, with the majority of Medellin, they will have the option to get the 2 bonuses, one for living in Medellin and the other one with 2 for working in the public sector. So I'm going to show you 2 examples. The first one, just to make this more clear, the first one is someone who did a master in business, MBA, finance, law. That is not business, but law. So that person will get a 20% for returning to Colombia and living in Colombia for 3 years. And in this example, let's suppose that this person go and lives in Cali. So in that case, he will be adding the 20%, and at the end, his scholarship will be 40%. Here is a second example, someone who did a master in data analysis in something that is not business. This person will get 20%. They go and live in a city different than Bogota, so this person at the end will get a 60% discount. And the higher scholarship that they can get from Colfuturo will be someone who do a program in business, in data science, go and live in Medellin and go and live with the Universidad del Norte as a full-time professor. This person will have all the conditions to get the maximum amount of the scholarship that Colfuturo can provide. So Colfuturo has different advantages, I will say, like for example, that we can support students that already started the program, but drawn out of money when they were in the middle of the program. That is the case of someone who did the first year of his MBA and need funding for the second year. So this person can get the 50,000 American dollars. Most of our students apply when they are going to start their programs. So this person will have the 50%, the $50,000 since the beginning, and they will have to maximize the money during the term of the program. We also accept that the student has other institution financing their program. So the student can have Colfuturo, ICETEX, and a scholarship from the university, personal funds. So at the end, what we want is that they have all the money they need in order to pay for their studies. I mentioned that they will have an extra year when they complete the program. So they will have 3 years in order to start paying back the part of the money, the part of the loan that they have to pay back. So to give you, as I mentioned in the example, someone who does an MBA, this person will have the 2 years of the program plus another year. And after that year is when this person will need to repay Colfuturo. They can study in any country and in any language. However, if they are going to study in Spanish, they need to prove to Colfuturo that they speak a second language. And they have the decision about the money that they request to Colfuturo. So someone who only needs $20,000, they can apply only for $20,000. We don't make any difference if they apply for $50,000 or for $20,000. They can apply to the maximum amount. That is not a criterion in order to select them. So we always encourage the students to ask for the maximum amount. So in that case, that when they are in the whole process of applying to the university, they need less money, they can reduce the amount. But we don't have the opposite scenario that if the student asks only for 20,000, then we won't be able to provide 50,000. So that's why we recommend the students that since the beginning, they ask for the maximum amount that Colfuturo can provide. And after, if they want, they can reduce. Very quickly, this is a loan, and the money that we are going to disburse is going to have some interest. So while they are studying, the interest rate is 7%. When they are paying back is 9%. And if they don't return to Colombia, or they don't get the degree, or they don't remain in Colombia for the 3 years, they will have to pay back all the loan, and that interest will be the 15% of the rate that we are going to ask them to pay. Something else that is important that you know is the loan is in US dollars. So when they are studying abroad, they will be receiving the US dollars that we were committed to do. This won't be tied to the exchange rate. That means that if we say we're going to pay $10,000, that is the money that he's going to get independently the currency exchange rate that exists at the time that we do the payment. We only have one call per year. In order to apply to Colfuturo call, the students need to be Colombians. They can have double nationality, but when they apply to Colfuturo, they have to apply with the Colombian nationality. The program needs to be full-time on campus. We don't support online programs. When they apply to Colfuturo, they don't need to have the admission, because we know that when they are applying to Colfuturo, they will be applying at the same time to the universities. So what will happen at the end is that maybe Colfuturo accepts them, but the university doesn't, or the opposite. So in that case, if we don't select them, they can apply again to Colfuturo next year. And if the university doesn't accept them, they can present to Colfuturo a different institution with the same level that they want in order to compete in our selection process. All the process is online, so the students don't need to be in Bogota or in Colombia. They can be in the US studying, so don't worry about that. The call for 2022 will open in January 11. We will close February 28. During March and April, we will be doing the selection process, and the results will be announced by mid-May. So this means that they will have plenty of time to do their visa process, to send you the information about Colfuturo's selections process, and we will also provide the students a sponsor letter to show you that they have been selected. Here it is important to mention that when they are selected, they need to go after that into a legalization process. And that legalization process is where we have the appointment to set the budget, to define how much money we are going to pay for each of the items. And we will send you that sponsor letter so you know how much Colfuturo is going to pay to you if they ask money for tuition fees. Regarding our selection process, we have 4 criterions. All of them are academic criterions. The first one is the GPA of the student. That is a 42% of the total score. Then is the program that they are going to pursue. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to take the program and we are going to check in international rankings how well appears the university in that specific field of study. So let's say they are going to do an MBA. So we will go to the rankings like the Economist, Financial Times, Forbes, Business Week, everything that is specific for MBA programs. So we will see how well ranked is the university in that specific list of study. And of course, the highest university appears on that list, the better the score they are going to have for their programs. And beside that, after we do that exercise of checking the rankings, we will have a panel of experts that will verify the grade that Colfuturo is providing. The objective of that panel is that we don't remain only considering the rankings, but also to have the experience and the opinion of experts that can verify if we are providing the correct grade to each of the programs. These experts will be able to say, for example, that they don't agree with the grade that the ranking provides and they want to put a higher or a lower grade. And we will do at the end what that expert recommends us. And the grade that at the end they decide is the one that has a weight of 38% of the evaluation. Then we have the position of the student in his class. So some universities in Colombia say, or in the US as well, they say like Joanna was the 10 in a group of 100, or Joanna was the first one in a group of 50. So when we have that position, we convert that into a grade. And if that grade helps the student to have a better score at the end, we will use that, and that will be the 15%. But let's say that Joanna was the 20 in a group of 25, or the university doesn't provide that information. In that case, what we are going to do is divide that 15% among the other criterions in order to have at the end 100%. And finally, there is a personal statement that the candidates need to write, letting us know who they are, why they choose that program, and what are their plans once they complete the program. We don't have priority areas. We don't have a list of eligible universities. Students are free to apply to study whatever they want and wherever they want. At the end, they are going to compete by groups in fields of study. So people who's going to do MBA programs, they will be competing in a separate group from people who's going to study law or who is going to study engineering. And with these grades, we are going to organize the students from the one with the highest score until the one with the lowest one. Colfuturo has a budget each year. So for example, in 2021, we received 3,600 applications, and we selected 1,359 students. So that means that the students have like a 33% of being selected, chances of being selected. I am going to show you as well some statistics. This one is one of our favorites because it shows the 29 group of students that we have selected over the years. And as you can see, Colfuturo has committed to select each year at least 1,300 students. And even though the pandemic and everything, we can keep working on this purpose. Most of the students apply to engineering, and the second most demanded area is business. So that's why you see that those are the areas with the largest numbers of our beneficiaries, but it's related to the demand and not to any preference that Colfuturo has. Also, I want to show you this one is people who return to Colombia. So 73% of the students that Colfuturo finances return to Colombia and receive their scholarships. And what I would recommend is that if you have any Colombian student, please tell them to contact us so we can explain them how the financial scheme works and they can decide if Colfuturo is a good option for them. So that's all what I have to share today.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you very much for this explanation. I don't know if there are any questions right now. Please feel free to jump in.
I guess I have a question, Joanna. You mentioned, well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. And I know for a lot of our candidates from Colombia, Colfuturo is always a target or an option for them when they're considering graduate education. So I just had a question about the difference between the MBA at 20% and I think all other types of graduate degrees. What is the reason for that, that distinction or that difference?
It's a finance decision because we have noticed that people who do programs in business and law, when they return to Colombia, their salaries has like a very good impact. So it's more like the return of the investment. We want to help those that we know that are not going to have that good return of investment. That's the main reason why.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Joanna, for all your help. Very useful information. And Jem, I think we can start with your presentation. As I mentioned, Jem is the founder of Talento Total, and he's very keen on supporting Afro-American descendants from Latin America and indigenous communities. So, Jem, all yours.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. And sorry for eating into your time. It's very difficult for me to talk about Talento Total without giving some context and background. It's just really hard. But I hope over the next, I guess, 10 or 20 minutes or so, we can dive into what our program aims to achieve, starting in Latin America, Brazil and Colombia specifically, because that's where I worked, but also looking to be impactful globally. And that's what brought me to London, which I arrived here on Monday, I want to say, and I'll be here throughout the week before returning to Colombia. So as Cecilia mentioned, I am Jim McCrary. I'm the founder and CEO of Talento Total. We are an international nonprofit organization, and our mission is to accelerate the careers and opportunities for Afro-descendant or Black and Indigenous young professionals throughout the world. And so, as I kind of mentioned before we got started, a lot of this work is tied to my own personal experiences and many of the programs that were created to benefit Afro-American and Latino students. So I'm speaking to my experience in high school, my experience post undergraduate university as well, and the just plethora or abundance of programs that not only helped me get into college, but also helped me get into business school. Last night, I was with two young men who are from here in London. They're both Black. And I met with them to talk about the MBA because they were curious. You know, how much does it cost? Why should I do it? And it was funny because their experience was so similar to mine. They both mentioned they work at Citibank here in London in Canary Wharf, but they both mentioned that they really didn't hear about the MBA until they got to until they got to Citibank. And my experience was the same. I really didn't know about business school until I saw all of my West Point classmates getting out of the Army and going to business school. And my thought process was, what is that all about? And if, you know, these guys and gals that I went to school with are good enough to get into these top business schools, well, I know I'm at least somewhere in the ballpark, so maybe I should give it a shot. And that's kind of what led me down the MBA path, and also my exposure to management leadership for tomorrow, which my mentor recommended to me. I didn't really know about that program as well. And so all of these instruments and tools and organizations were in place throughout, you know, my childhood, my adolescence, as well into my young professional career, if you will. And what I realized after I finished business school and I joined Citibank to work in a program that included 2 international rotations, the first one being in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where I worked for Citi for 2 years, and the second being in Bogota, Colombia, where I worked for 2 years as well, was that, number one, there was no one else in the office that looked like me, except for the cleaning staff and maybe the security guards when I worked in Brazil. And so that was very eye-opening and frustrating and problematic for me, especially when we look at a country like Brazil that has a Black population that is somewhere near 60%. And so knowing that the Black population in the United States is only 13%, yet there were always individuals that I could look up to who looked like me, that gave me the inspiration and gave me the confidence to apply or to pursue an opportunity. And I just saw that that was not in place in either Brazil or Colombia. And then the other thing that I noticed was that there weren't any programs specifically focused on Black and Indigenous students and young professionals along the lines of race and ethnicity, which is a very sensitive and somewhat new topic in Latin America. I've been traveling to Brazil for almost 20 years. And I can recall the first time that I went there, maybe in 2001 or so, and this notion that racism didn't exist in Brazil, and it was just accepted by everyone. And so I think today we're starting to see the page turn, where there's more recognition of the structural racism that exists in many countries throughout the world, and things that we need to do as universities, as companies, as institutions and organizations to make a positive impact and change the narrative around opportunities and access. And so, you know, I left Citi in 2018 after pretty much complaining for about 4 years. And I'm not a person who complains without, you know, at some point making a stand and saying, hey, I have to do something, you know, I have to see what I can do. And so I left Citi in 2018 while I was working in Colombia, and I started Talento Total with my Chicago booth classmate, Doug Nagy. He founded or co-founded the McKinsey & Company office in Medellin. And he was essentially employee number 2 there for that office. And he was charged with doing a lot of the recruiting and some of the things that he saw in terms of how recruiting was being conducted in Colombia, especially for these elite firms and institutions and organizations, which was based around where you live, what economic status you come from, what your last name is, And so in seeing those things, Doug and I kind of connected, and we said, hey, we could do something to make a contribution and provide more access and opportunities for Black and Indigenous Colombians. And I was thinking along the same lines in Brazil. And then I think the final piece that brought it all together was we started to reflect on our experiences in business school. And having gone through MLT and their MBA prep program, I realized that I never really saw any Black Brazilians in a US business school. I never saw any Black Colombians, never saw any Black Peruvians. I could go on, I can go throughout the entire region and tell you, I never really saw any Afro-Latino international business students, aside from the Dominican Republic. And oftentimes the Afro-Dominicans that I saw grew up in New York City. So they kind of did not come out of the Dominican Republic, which changed the dynamic in terms of their access and opportunities. And so we launched our Total MBA prep program in 2018. And we were fortunate enough to discover some amazing candidates across Brazil, and their stories and narratives and what they had overcome to get to the position that they were in when we discovered them was just astounding to me. I think my background is pretty exceptional, but when I look at many of the challenges that the students had to overcome in their particular trajectory, it kind of, it made me, say, wow, you might have a better application than I did. And I'm talking about coming from an experience where I was a helicopter pilot in the US Army. I was the only Black pilot in my flight school class. I lived and worked overseas. My parents come from very humble backgrounds. So there were a lot of things that I brought to the table in terms of diversity as a US military veteran, as well as an Afro-American with a unique story. But a lot of the candidates that we see today, their stories and their narratives and their experiences are just as impactful, if not more, than a lot of what I saw from my peers in the United States. And let's not forget about the language barrier, right? And I know what it's like to learn a second language. I have to do these presentations in Portuguese and Spanish, and I have a heart attack every time I do one, because you're speaking in front of an accomplished group like we have here. And for someone who's looking to be precise and deliver and have command of the language that they're speaking, there's a lot of pressure. So a lot of our candidates are doing that as well. And so, our goal initially was just to focus on the MBA and change the leadership and diversity landscape in LATAM. And then we soon realized that there were also challenges in the legal profession. When I started the organization, I didn't even know what pro bono was. And so I was paying a lot of legal fees to get our articles of incorporation done, our trademarks done. And then someone mentioned that, hey, you could get a law firm to do this work for you for free. And so as I started to look for law firms in the region, specifically Colombia, Brazil, and of course the US, I noticed that when I looked at the law firms, which have a more of a open website in terms of being able to see who works there, because everyone's picture is posted online at these law firms, I realized, hey, I don't see any Afro-Colombians here. I don't see any Afro-Brazilians here as well. And so on a visit to the State Department, I was introduced to someone from the Vance Center for International Justice, which is the nonprofit arm of the New York City Bar Association that does a lot of international work, especially focused on the things that we focus on, which is racial and ethnic diversity, gender diversity, human rights, et cetera. We partnered with them almost a year ago, and we launched a program called the Total Law Prep Program to help our candidates understand the admissions process, understand the application process for top LLM programs throughout Europe and the United States. And in that first year, we were able to place 3 Afro-Colombian candidates who represent 3 distinct, specific and distinct groups in Colombia. One being maybe our Colombians know this, from San Basilio de Palenque, which is one of the oldest free Black towns in the Americas. So we have a Palenquera woman who's at NYU Law School right now. We have another young man from San Andres y Providencia, which is the island of, or the archipelago of Colombia. And he also represents an Afro-descendant community there called Raizal. And then we also have a woman from Quibdó, Chocó, which is the Pacific region of Colombia. So the young man from the archipelago is at Cornell, and the young lady from Quibdó is at UCLA. And we also have an indigenous young man who started at Fordham Law School last month, who's from La Guajira, and he is from the Waju community. So just in 1 year, we were able to step out and do some phenomenal work, and the need was there. And as I mentioned, a lot of our candidates come from humble backgrounds. They don't have the exposure. They're often kind of defeated once they see the price tag. And we kind of coach them through, hey, there are financial resources out there like CoFuturo, for example, that can support you in your endeavors to pursue graduate education abroad. And this is something that is not impossible. And we can help you through this process. And we also have each of our candidates paired with a coach who either has an LLM for the law program or an MBA for the MBA program. And they're usually from Colombia or the country that the candidate is from. And they also have the ability to kind of coach them through the process, having gone through it themselves. And so a lot of our coaches are not Afro-descendant or indigenous. I think a few of them have even come through Cecilia's programming in Colombia. But the idea is that they realize the benefit of teaching young people how to navigate this very difficult process, and also the benefit that it provides to their countries when we level the playing field for access. And I was going to do a presentation, but I figured I would speak instead. But one of the examples that we use, and I'll kind of close things out here, is from football, or soccer, as it is known in the United States. When we look at the soccer or football teams from Colombia and Brazil, you see stars who are Black, like Pele, like Neymar, like Adriano, Ronaldo, in Colombia, Juan Cuadrado, Jerry Mina. And these Black soccer superstars, who often play for the biggest clubs in Europe, are allowed to compete on the athletic playing field. And there's no limit to the access. But when we look at education and we look at the corporate sector, it's very different. Much of the access is limited. And a lot of times when Afro-descendant people or indigenous people don't see themselves represented in these positions, whether it's a corporate law firm or Google or Facebook, they oftentimes don't believe it's possible. However, when they see themselves represented on a football field in the Champions League or playing for Manchester United, as far and distant as that possibility is away from reality, they believe that it's possible because they see someone who looks like them having achieved that goal, which is very difficult to do. And so what we try to do is explain to, not just Afro-Colombians, but all Colombians or all Brazilians, that when we allow access, we're actually elevating the competitive landscape for our economies and for our societies. And that means that more young people are allowed to dream and pursue their goals. And that just makes the country better. It makes it more competitive from an economic standpoint and from an educational standpoint. And so I think those are the things that we try to present when we want to make this a collective effort, coming from everyone, whether you're Afro-descendant or indigenous or not. How can we make a contribution? How can we provide access? How can we provide socioeconomic mobility, which is very difficult in a lot of the countries throughout Latin America? And so that is what we do. It's a pleasure to connect with everyone here. One of the things that I try to do is provide as much exposure as possible to the different schools throughout the world that are available to these candidates to apply to. And oftentimes some of the bigger schools get the recognition and they get the publicity and the coverage, but sometimes, and this happened to me, schools that I work with now that I didn't know about when I go visit a campus or when I work with them, I'm like, how come nobody told me about this school? I would have applied. And I'm American, right? So I think getting the word out and getting the exposure out is very important for a lot of our candidates, because it enables them to find the right school that is right for them and the right fit. And so that's pretty much what I do. Again, I want to thank you again, Cecilia, for the platform and the opportunity to speak. And I hope I didn't go over this time.
You did not. Thank you very much, Dan. Very interesting. I hope all those candidates apply. We're always happy to support your efforts because I think they're very valuable for our countries, for some minorities that don't have the representation, the means, and the opportunities. So thank you very, very much. I don't know if there are any questions. I see that some universities had to leave. But if it's okay, I can share your information with all the universities.
Sure. Thank you very much, Cecilia.
Thank you so much. So we'll continue with FIDER. As I mentioned, it's a branch of the Central Bank of Mexico. Carlos, thank you very much for being here.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, thank you very much to the grad school team for the invitation. I'm here with Arely Rodriguez. Arely Rodriguez is, as me, part of the team of FIDER. So I'm going to share all the information that you need for give to students and to know about FIDER. Well, firstly, we are the Fund for the Development of Human Resources. In Spanish, is the Fondo para el Desarrollo de Recursos Humanos. There is a fund that was created in 1971. We have this year, 2021, we celebrate our 50th birthday. So FIDER now have a lot of time working with Mexican students. How FIDER works is firstly to give educational loans to Mexican students to pay living costs or insurance, health, or tuition fees to study in Mexico or abroad in a graduate program. What FIDER gives to students is educational loans for a study, a graduate certificate, a master's degree, or a PhD. The student can apply to get a loan until 4,100 Mexican pesos. That is around 20,000 American dollars. So these resources can be used for students to pay the tuition fees, living costs, or insurance costs. And for apply to this loan, students must to apply in one of our 4 or 5 calls that we open per year. So every year we are opening calls where students can give us their applications, and we evaluate the students to identify the best students for give the loans to study in a university. Well, how FIDER works? Firstly, during the study, no payments are made or interests are generated. That means that the students only focus to the program, only to study during that period. After the studies, they have 1 year of grace. It's a period where students not pay anything, so a student can decide if return to Mexico or stay working in another country. It is not a problem for FIDER. So during this year of grace, a student maybe can start a business or start to work in any country. So they have 1 year to grace to start to pay, because 1 year after to end the program, students must to start to pay the loan. It's important to know for the universities, that a student that already started the program can be financed. That means that if you have a student that now are enrolled in a MBA or in another program, they can apply to FIDER. So if you have also a student that are your new applicants or new prospect, they can apply to FIDER if the program starts 11 months after the application or of the CAL. And as I told you before, the resources are deposited to the student bank account. That means that it's the responsibility to the students to give the money to the university, because FIDER only give the resource to the students. And the loan is in Mexican pesos with a preferential interest rate for Mexican students. But it's important to know how the interest rate of FIDER works, because in Mexico it's complicated a culture about regarding the educational loans. More of the students could prefer a scholarship or a discount, but now with FIDER gives the option to give educational loans that not only helps these students, because the FIDER loans help to the future students, because during the students are paying their loans, they are helping to give more credits to more Mexican. So the interest rate that FIDER charges is, for example, is a variable rate. That means that each month the interest rate is changing. For example, in August of 2021, the interest rate was 2.39% per year. How we obtain this interest rate? It's through the CPP, because the CPP is an interest rate that is published by the Bank of Mexico. The interest rate of August was 3.19, and we charge the 75% of that interest, and we calculate the annual interest rate of FIDER. As you can see in the graphic, the annual interest rate of FIDER has not been higher than 5%. And it's going to communicate to students that the interest is low, because that is attractive for they. And it's how this work. We have no difference between programs, and the interest rate is the same for all the students. So all the students that are that obtain the loan of FIDER are going to pay in the same conditions. And well, but what students need for apply to FIDER? Firstly, they must to have the Mexican nationality and to have a GPA of 7.8, and to have a certificate of professional assessment. It could be a bachelor degree, or in Mexico we call it as a licenciatura. And it's important to know that the higher GPA they have, the more chances they have to get the loan. And also the student have to need to have the support of a guarantor, and to have a good record credit or credit history, and to have a maximum age of 15 years. That means that someone that have 49 years old can apply for FIDER and get the loan to study a master or a MBA. It's important that the students have a second language certificate, and it's the same situation as the GPA. The most score they have in the language certificate, the most chance they have to get the loan. And FIDER was created in 1971, but we have statistics since 2010. And since 2010, we have granted 903,016 educational loans. It's a good number. It's a higher number for Mexico. And we can say that we authorized more than 200 credit application to study an MBA. We know that most of the universities that here we have are interested in promoting the MBA's program. So with FIDER, your student can apply and can get the loan for studying with you. And an important data is that 80% of the loans were for graduate abroad. That means that we have a good number of Mexican students that are interested to study abroad, an MBA, for example. And it's important to clarify that the FIDER loan can be requested to study at any university. That means that any student that have an acceptance letter from any university of the world can apply to FIDER, and any university can invite a student to obtain the loan from FIDER. If at the end of the presentation, I'm going to share you our email contact. So if you want more information about the application or more information about the calls that we there published, so we can share you in order that you present FIDER as an option for your Mexican prospect to finance their programs. And I would like to talk to you about the agreements we have. We have more than 100 agreements with different universities in Mexico and in other countries. As you can see, United Kingdom is the main country where we have an agreement. So I told you that any university, any student of different university can apply, because the agreement is not a problem for universities that have not an agreement with FIDER. The agreement is only a plus. How it works? It works in the following way. When the students get the loan, we notify to the university that have an agreement with us that the students gets the loan, and the university give a scholarship or a discount to the students. That scholarship and discount was defined by the university, is the decision, the criteria of the number of scholarship or the amount of the discount is a criteria of the university. So now how university, if you are interested in make a collaboration with FIDER, we can do it, and that's good. It's a win to win. That because it's a win for the students, it's a win for FIDER and the university. For students, for example, an agreement can allow to the students to obtain a scholarship and a loan. The loan by FIDER and the scholarship or discount by the university. The student increase the possibility of get the loan, since the student can receive 10% more score in his evaluation, because we try to give this loan only to the best students. So if the student apply to a university with an agreement, they have more chance to get the loan. Also, the student can have an additional benefit, because it's not only the loan, it's also the scholarship or discount that the university can to give. And for the university can access to the Mexican student market, and we promote to the university in our social media and in our website. You can find in our website the section that talks about the agreements we have. We have the information of all the universities, and we have the contact, the link to the website to the university, and that's with the intention to give more promotion to the university that have an agreement with us. So that's the way how the agreement with FIDER works. But it's important to know that if we don't have an agreement, it doesn't a problem. It doesn't a problem because students can apply to FIDER. Agreement is only a plus. I told you, because I know that you are interested in promoting your MBAs or your programs with Latin American students. In this case, FIDER can help you to promote this program with Mexican students. So I hope that in these little minutes, I have given you the information necessary to share that FIDER can be an option for students to study abroad, an MBA abroad. So if you are interested in receiving information regarding our calls, regarding our new changes, you can scan this QR code. Or if you want to check the possibility to formalize in a collaboration agreement, as I told you, you can scan this QR code to enter your information, and we will contact you. So if you want more information about us, you can write us to the email for universities. And if you want to share this information about FIDER to the students, you can share the email I mentioned in the screen. So now that you will have the following fair in this Saturday, you can share our email contact to the student in order that we can help to your prospect to apply to FIDER. We can review what that students need to apply with us, and to help to get the loan that will allow to the students to study with you or in the university that you represent. And if you have more information about our website, here we have the second QR where you can scan and to see our website. So I invite you to see the information about the agreements we have. I invite you to see the information about our calls, because in each of our calls, we invite students to read a PDF that have all the information they need. And for the application, they need to make an application online, but they need also to make a file with a lot of documents. We know that that there's a lot of documents that we require, but that's necessary because this is a loan, and this is a loan that is given by a fund that is managed by the Central Bank of Mexico. So these resources are from the federal government. So we need to take care of these resources because it's to help to Mexican students. So I hope that this information helps you. And if you want more questions, don't hesitate to contact me. This is the email, and this is the information, the main information for you. So that's all for me. I don't know if you have a questions or if we have time. I'm not sure, but I want to know it.
Carlos, thank you very much. If anyone has a question, I think it's a very interesting scheme and a good opportunity for Mexican students and universities to get the word around. I don't see anyone. I don't know if anyone has a question. Please jump in. So, Carlos, thank you very, very much for this presentation. I'm sure we can work together. Thank you, everyone, for being here and attending this overview. It's very valuable of all the institutions, FIDER, Colfuturo, that can provide the means or help make that dream of studying abroad possible. So thank you very much. Jem, also good luck with your work. I hope we can continue working together with all of you. And I'll sign off. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you very much. And
Bye.
thanks very much for the invitation.
Okay, bye.
Bye.